Hey, what's going on, Jackson? How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Thursday, Thursday, Thursday. Some of you, some of you today is Thirsty Thursday. so, but this is Thursday, August 27th, 2026, and in today's video, once again, we're gonna kind of, you know, pivot around and search around and see what we can find, to talk about, and what but I want to say, I'm glad to be here today with y'all and everything. I hope you're doing well. I hope you slept well. I hope whatever issues that you had last night. I don't know if you had stomach cramps or whatever you had. You had you know or you just couldn't sleep. I hope you just worked through it and everything. Whether you're going to work, you're coming from work, or you're at work. I hope you listen to the 601 Network. We're going to try to drop some stuff on, try to drop some good stuff on you and everything, and we're going to hold it in the road. Everything's good on this end. I I am trying to I am still working on this computer programming, and we are moving forward with that. That's a very good. It's like I said, it's getting more and more interesting. My thought faculties, when you get older, but I tell you the truth, man. Oh boy. Hey, oh boy. I'm like, oh boy. Your thought process of your thinking is not as acute as it could be, but it ain't. It is not as depleted and degraded as it should be. You know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful for that. I am totally grateful for that. Um, like I said, this computer programming stuff is not, it's like I said, it's very interesting, and the results for me, once again, it's like I said before, the results for me is just getting that result. Whenever you press enter, boom, you know what I'm saying? You don't get no errors, and the program works the way it's supposed to. That's, that's my main thing, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna really say that's my main thing, but because it's like two or three things at one time. But one of my main issues, my main things that I really truly had to really had to figure out, and I started to really like is figuring out the errors. Because when I was in school and we was in computer school, we had this computer program called Basic. So I just heck, did I just tell you my age? Did I just tell you my age? We had to computer Basic. And when Basic throw an error, we say, oh well, it's an error, it don't work. But no, I know better now. But see, I carried that all through my life when I was dealing with these computers and dealing with the command line, because that's all I knew. My instructor, Mr. Bizargo, he was a young cat, and he knew some stuff, but he didn't know the stuff that in terms of telling us, hey, listen, you need to address the errors. Nah, he didn't know it like that. You know what I'm saying? He didn't understand, that you have to address the errors. So that's something for me has become more of a focus to me, not just alone writing syntax. Writing the syntax, that's called the computer program. Writing it's just a string is like a sentence. When you write a sentence in a paragraph, but that's exactly what it is. It's a sentence. A string is a sentence, and you learn where to put the colons, where to put the semicolons, where to put the commas, where to put this, that, and the other. And you press enter and it's supposed to work, right? But he never taught us how to deal with the errors. And I guess you're probably trying to say, well, what? I guess you're probably saying, what has all this got to do with, what the heck are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? I know I'm talking about what I'm doing, right? But this is also about life. And this is about addressing your problems. Hey, listen. This is called the 601 Network. You know what I'm saying? Listen. We're going to talk about a lot of different things that deals with life. And in the, you know, because resident, this is you. You know what I'm saying? This is you. You know what I'm saying? Because whether you're voting, whether you're going to that ballot box and putting something in that ballot, you know what I'm saying? Putting a ballot in that box. Whether you're going to a meeting and giving your opinion or listen to the views and opinions of others. You know? You have to do it intelligently. I hear a lot of the older folk holler, you need to get out and vote. We need to go in drones. And I do agree with that. But just like the computer program that I'm talking about, you need to know what you're doing. Because you're going to get back in error. Right? So let's use that as a metaphor. You're going to get back in error. Let me tell you why I say that. Because if you go in there and you write up a string and you get back in error, that means that you didn't carefully do your due diligence to understand the string and how it works. That means that you didn't do your due diligence in understanding how this candidate works. And when he get in there, he or she get in office, they're gonna create they're gonna make all types of errors. And you be like, this dude sucks. Right? You're gonna be like, man, this guy sucks. He stinks. You're gonna be like, why did I vote for this? Why would I vote for this woman? She don't know nothing about nothing. What I'm saying is, be careful on who you vote for. You know what I'm saying? They can change this district up all they want to. You know what I'm saying? They can change it up all they want to. They can do all of that. And you have to still go out to the ballot. You still have to go out to the ballot box and drop it in. You might vote absentee or whatever the case may be. It doesn't make a difference. It does not make a difference. What it is, you have to do your due diligence on the individual that's running for office. And if you don't do that, you're going to get what you're going to get. You're doing it based on pressure, based on people making it popular. They making it popular for people to say, to go out and vote. And you're doing it because, like I said, you're pressured. You feel that you have to do it. You know, my ancestors died for this, and that's an excuse. That's a straight excuse. If you're going out to vote because your ancestors didn't get a chance to, then something wrong with you. I'm just telling you straight up and down. Leave me a comment. I know you're probably gonna disagree, and you're entitled to it. But listen to what I'm saying. Don't go out and vote because your ancestors didn't have that right to vote. You go out and vote because there's the right person is running. The right person, the values align with yours. And you have done your due diligence and research on that candidate. That's what I'm saying. You know? So, you know, but that's like I said, but it's totally up to you, resident. It's totally up to you. I don't spend my time just going out willy-nilly voting for folks or and reiterating to people that they need to get out and vote. See, I want to do it the right way. I want you to exercise your vote, but I want you to do your due diligence on the candidate that you are voting for. See, nobody is saying that, especially in the black community. Because, all right, watch this. Let me get a swig of this coffee. If it's not true, then why the majority of us vote Democrat and don't even care to listen to the views of some of the Republican side? Let's make that make sense, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? It's like, because we have this I don't know, it's like if you're a Democrat, you some different type of human or something. If you're a Republican, you from somewhere else, you're from another planet or something. We automatically have a bias about you. You automatically have a bias about, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and it's vice versa for those that votes Republican. They automatically have this bias. Why is that? Why is that? Why do we have a bias? And see, some of us is so naive and so blinded to what has happened. And we're so quick to judge and dwell on the past. We don't even want to look that way. That maybe, just possibly, maybe that Republican might have something for us. There might be something better for us in the policies that Republican is presenting. You see? But you don't say a ding dong word when you have a Republican, when you have a conservative Democrat, right? Oh man, don't get me started this morning. Nobody say a ding dong word when you have a conservative Democrat that shares the same values, quiet policies that the Republicans share, right? And we still vote for him because he a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? Everybody voted for when Dukakis and George Bush to the first power. I remember this clear as day. When Dukakis and Bush to the first power ran for office, Bush was the first person to use the word liberal. This is how he won. He kept calling him names. and Dukakis tucked his tail between his legs, and that's how he won. But all the black folks was voting for Dukakis. I didn't care about none of his policies. That's why I didn't even move. I didn't even move at that time. I mean, because I'm like this, it wasn't even worth it. I looked at the debates and stuff, but because I always liked to look at the debates, even though I was a young man. You know what I'm saying? I was a teenager at the time, but I liked it. I like to look at the debates because I want to see, you know what I'm saying? And at that time they was calling an ace a ace and a spade at that time back in the days. But that was the first time I heard a politician from the Republican side call a Democrat a liberal. He said, "You're a liberal. You're a liberal." That kind of thing. And Dukakis was doubling down and everything. Because I remember it. The reason why I remember that particular debate so clear, because I used to work when I was living in New York. I used to work on the street, right? And I used to sell these little kufi hats. And man, and so me and the lady that used to make them, the boss lady, we used to talk about politics all the time. She was, and the funny thing is, that lady was a Republican. First black lady I ever heard of being a Republican. And she said this was back in the, I want to say it was like in the 80s, like in the late 80s. She said, "Baby, I'm a Republican. You know why? Because they got the money. I ain't studying." And, and I'm like, and all that type of stuff. When you're a kid, you absorb a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that is stuck in the back of my head with her, because I'm like, and I'm just like, look at her, the way she used to walk, the way she used to move. Yo, I was like, yo, she is a Republican, because I'm gonna tell you something. The way she used to move, I don't know how, but she was moving free. She was free. That woman was free. I'll never forget, her name was Priscilla. She's passed on now. She's returned to the essence. But man, listen. She was free. She used to walk around there, and man, they gave her a brand new apartment. Brand spanking new apartment. She had 2 apartments. She had one apartment for her business and one apartment where she lived. I know. I was there. I went in her apartments. I was there in her apartments. You know what I'm saying? But she, like I said, but she was talking to a lot of those Republican politicians. And they was plugging her in. They was plugging her in. She said, "I ain't got to pay rent for 2 years." I was like, "How you get that?" She said, "Baby, don't worry about it. You want to come stay with me?" She's like, because her son lived in the other apartment. You know what I'm saying? They had like 9 bedrooms up in one of the other apartments, and they had like about 3 or 4 bedrooms. I don't know, something like that. I can't remember. But it was a new apartment because it was a re-renovated building. Man, listen, I'm telling you, man. So, but what I'm saying is that, so that's why I'm saying, but that's what we was taught. We was all taught like this, especially down here in the South. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you that has been pervasive all through the South, especially in Mississippi, with black folks. All the older folks used to holler, "Well, you need to get out and march. You need to get out and do this and get." Look, let me tell you something. And you need to vote Democrat. But nobody talks about the truth. When black folks was being lynched for no reason, right? the people who did that was Democrats, because Democrats was mean mob rule. Mob rule. Was it the mobocracy type situation? Mobocracy, democracy, crap. But it means it's something like rule, majority, something like that. Rule. I can't think of the exact definition of the Democrat, but that's what it means. Mob rule. Just in a nutshell. And they were Democrats. All those folks with those white hoods on, and some of them had white hoods, some of them did not have white hoods, and they was just like they was Democrats. And for somehow the Republican Party were a lot of black folk. Because if you could remember, let me drop this one on you. All right, remember this. Let me be clear. The great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father was a Republican. And I'm not for sure if he was a Republican or not either, but I'm not sure. But I remember that the great Dr. Martin Luther King, his father was a Republican. See what I'm saying? And but somehow it changed up. Well, you know what I'm saying? It changed up. You know what I'm saying? The majority of the white folks was Democrats. Majority of the black folks was Republicans. And it swapped up. Why does it have to be a white and black thing? See, I think that's all perpetuated by media. Media, popularity, and all that kind of junk. You know what I'm saying? And they just constantly perpetuate this racism stuff. But let me say this. There's a difference between them perpetuating it. They're perpetuating the racism stuff, but they're not perpetuating the right stuff that's, you know what I'm saying, the stuff that needs to be said. You see? They perpetuate the wrong stuff, not the right stuff. Just like, they was talking about Target had something on the media. They was talking about Target was something about somebody was painting black faces. You see that? You see what I'm saying? You see somebody, and then they had to come back and they had to apologize. Oh, come on. But you're perpetuating the wrong stuff. You're perpetuating the wrong stuff. But ain't nobody said a ding dong word about what I said yesterday. Nobody said that. You didn't hear that I bet you didn't hear that on the news. I bet you that you didn't hear. You ain't hear that on the news. They ain't gonna say nothing about that. They're not gonna say nothing about that. They don't wanna they don't wanna rock the boat. They're not gonna say something that's gonna be against the status quo. They're not gonna do that. And I understand it. That's why I stand up. I stand up and I point out the things that need to be pointed out, you know what I'm saying, to the minds and hearts of the people. Because don't be fooled, people. Don't be fooled. For blacks and whites, stop being fooled. Stop being bamboozled. Because that's what it is. And it is what it is. The media perpetuates certain types of racism. You know what I'm saying? Just keep folks fighting. But they're not perpetuating the right kind of. They're not perpetuating the truth. The truth. That Black Sambo crap has been played out. Man, that's played out with Kute Kente. That Black Sambo crap been played out. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden now they want to use that as a racist type story to talk about. But you didn't say anything about um, the humanitarian, what type of humanitarian that Reverend Jesse Jackson was. How he came down to Jackson, Mississippi when WorldCom first came here to ensure that black folks had a seat at the table with getting jobs. See, nobody talks about that. Now, once again, I said before, there's no, absolutely, believe me, let me tell you, I'm going to be real with y'all. Ain't no disrespect to Miss Parton at all. She ain't, you know what I'm saying, because she wasn't with it either. Because it was said on, I seen an interview where she said, you know, we was talking about the LGBTQ plus community, and she was like, you know, if you supposed to be Christians, then what we judging folks for? What we judging folks for? So she wasn't with it either. Let's keep that 100. The rules are for some and not for all. That's what I was told. That's what I was told. The rules are for some and not for all. But who perpetuates those rules? Those that want control, that want to stay in control. You know what I'm saying? Those that want to stay in control. You know what I'm saying? She was a humanitarian. Dolly Parton was a humanitarian for real. Real for real. You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling you right now, my hat come off to her and what she has done for her community. See, that goes back to what we talked about before, black folk. See, now we can go into what I talk about on this show. And the lesson that she taught should have been a lesson that we all can learn. When you come from nothing and you become something, don't forget where you come from. Give back. She gave back. That's the key. She gave back. She looked out. Regardless, that was in her community. Hey, some of us ignorant black folks gonna say, well, she ain't did nothing for us. She did it for everybody. Anybody that came to her park could be a part of it. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep that a buck. Let's keep that a buck. And you could tell she was straight down to earth. Man, I'm 52 years old. The same way she was when I was a kid, it was the same way she was when she died. She had never changed. I ain't never seen that woman change. I say something, but when I talk about equity is all balanced. But equity in our society is all balanced, and it needs to change. And the only way it's going to change if black folks, we get up off our tails and make it change. And how we make it change is we got to start doing for ourselves. We got to stop asking and begging others to come in our community and straighten it up. We need to straighten it up ourselves. And that's the lessons that I learned. That's the lesson that I learned from Dolly Parton. That's the lesson I learned. When you get some bread, you just want to spend it on yourself. Man, please. She said, see, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna keep it a buck. She has some big old kahunas. You know what I'm saying? And she was pretty, right? Everybody know Dolly Parton for the big kahunas that she had. You know what I'm saying? Those assets was, yo, and she knew she had big kahunas. I'm gonna tell you, they was like, yo, you need to tone down your image. I guess they wanted her to get a breast reduction and put her image in another way. She said, hell no. I'm gonna ride this till this joint make me some bread. I'm gonna ride this joint till this joint make me some bread. If these kahunas gonna make me some bread, I'm gonna prop these joints up and I'm gonna look as sexy as I'm gonna look and I'm gonna sing this music. And she did. And didn't change. And if y'all didn't like it, y'all kiss my ass. Off the rip. So, I mean, let's look. I'm just saying. She was like Ice-T. She was like, ain't nobody gonna pimp me. I'm gonna pimp myself. I'm my best hoe. That's what Ice-T said. Ain't nobody pimping me. If I'm gonna be a pimp, I'm gonna pimp myself. And I'm gonna be my best hoe. And yo, I'm just calling the ace of ace and the spade of spade. You know what I'm saying? But I digress. Black folks, that's like I said, that's the lesson that I learned from the great Dolly Parton. You need to take care of your own community. We got to galvanize, strategize. And if anything that came out of that, that's the lesson that you should be getting from her humanity. Her humanity, that's what that should teach you. Give back to your community. You know what I'm saying? You can't help everybody. But if you help your own community, what you will do is you're planting the seed for other people that's going to come behind you, or other people from other parts of town to want to do for their community. That's it for me. Talk to y'all tomorrow.